What are the best and worst matchups for your wide receivers and tight ends for fantasy football in Week 5? It's time to break down the positional rankings and also look at streaming defenses and our start-sit advice here as we begin another matchup Thursday on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. I have my column up there, the Stardom Situm column there, the Decider. It comes up every Tuesday afternoon. We break that down in full for you here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We did the quarterback, running backs rankings, and start-sit advice there for those fringe players there. One you want to think about playing this week and ones you want to think about avoiding there as you make those tough decisions in your fantasy football lineups here for Week 5 and redraft leagues. We'll get into the wide receivers, tight ends, and streaming defenses here on today's show here to help you play the right entities here to help you win your fantasy football matchups. We do that every week here on Thursday. So quarterbacks, running backs, if you missed that breakdown, catch it on Matchup Wednesday. It's up there on archives. We'll also turn around and look at our DFS stuff there with FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, and prize picks there to close the week, and our injury updates, of course, to get you up to speed on Friday for the latest there ahead of the Sunday and Monday games. We do have Thursday Night Football tonight, Colts and the Broncos in Denver, so we'll see about that and see what we want to do with our wide receivers and tight ends in that particular game. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are free and available to you on all platforms. I mentioned that we'll do our prize picks tomorrow. Crossover Thursday is presented by our friends at Prize Picks. That's our look at all the matchups. So we have our hosts of different teams, such as Colts and Broncos, that discuss games that are coming up ahead this weekend. Prize Picks is so much fun and it's easy to play. No competing with other players. Just as you go versus the projections available. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. It can literally take less than 60 seconds to enter. It's that easy to make your Prize Picks. We love Prize Picks, and we know you will too. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. All right, so let's dive right in to how I'm looking at the wide receivers here in this week. And, let's start with the rankings and just how we go down the line here. Cooper Kupp, he's going to be in the rankings at the top until further notice. I mean, he's the man here. He just keeps delivering. The most consistent force in fantasy football at this point that isn't a quarterback. So Cooper Kupp, again, against the Cowboys, he can shred that matchup in the slot. Justin Jefferson coming off a big game against the Saints in London, gets the Bears weak secondary at home without Diontae Johnson. You get Stefon Diggs to go after that Steelers secondary. They're all banged up, all the starters for the Steelers, including Witherspoon and Cameron Sutton. So everyone is looking better on the outside. So Diggs should have a big game, especially with the other injuries developing at wide receiver and tight end for Buffalo. Jamar Chase torched the Ravens last year, destroyed them. The Ravens are a blitzing team. That should be a good matchup for Chase to get going with a potential big game. Devontae Adams should see a lot of targets against the Chiefs there on Monday night. There, as the Raiders are expected to trail that game. We have A.J. Brown in a great match against the Cardinals secondary. Tyreek Hill, the chemistry between him and Bridgewater is real. Jalen Waddle also battling through a growing injury, so might be slowed down a little bit, but Hill and Bridgewater feeling it against the Jets. Deebo Samuel coming off a smash game against the Rams. He gets the Panthers secondary there that is without Jeremy Chin in the middle and a little bit turning at corner. Mike Evans tough matchup a little bit with A.J. Terrell, but he's on a touchdown roll here, so like that matchup. Jalen Waddle should still be active against the Jets this week in that secondary. T. Higgins also having a big year playing off Jamar Chase, so off the blitz, both these guys should be successful outside. Portland Sutton tonight there against the Colts at home. The Colts secondary has been rather weak. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't think he's going to come back, but if he does, you definitely play him against the Patriots this week. Christian Kirk in a smash spot against that Texans secondary with Derek Stingley Jr. a little bit injured there on the outside, but Kirk can eat on the inside there against the Texans. Chris Olave can destroy the Seahawks secondary at home. Clear number one, Michael Thomas not looking good to play still with that foot injury. Marcus Brown, a little bit tougher matchup there. Could see a bit of Darius Slay, but getting the volume there with Kyler Murray has been productive, and this is really a couple more chances there until you see DeAndre Hopkins returning. Brown's value goes down. So hopefully Brown has a big game and you can trade him there. Michael Pittman, not the easiest matchup against Pat Surtain and the Broncos tonight, but he's the number one receiver, and they're going to have to throw a little bit more without Jonathan Taylor. DK Metcalf, he's in a good spot with Smith. I know the matchup could be tough against Marshawn Lattimore, but I think you might see Tyler Lockett face that matchup a little bit more. So Metcalf stays in your lineup. Mike Williams, we'll see if Keenan Allen can return, but Mike Williams is an easy wide receiver 1-2 there without Allen. Allen doesn't look great for him. It also doesn't look promising here for Josh Palmer. So if I'm going to go with a Charger, it's only going to be Williams in that matchup against Denzel Ward and the Browns. Michael Thomas, if he's back there, then you play him against the Seahawks, but it doesn't look good so far. All right, let's go to the rankings beyond that, so we can fill out our top 36 kind of in our leagues here this week, guys that I really like and I would want to get in there. Gabe Davis, I was a little bit down on him because I wasn't sure what you're going to get from the ankle injury. And clearly, he was limited the last few weeks after he missed that one game against the Titans. But now you got him practicing in full. You have Jameson Crowder down with a leg injury. Jake Coomer has been hurt. You also have Isaiah McKenzie dealing with a concussion, and Dawson Knox is banged up. So someone's got to get the targets there opposite Diggs that are going to be key. If Davis is back at 100%, I think you could see a very similar scenario to week one against the Rams. So Gabe Davis this week, rebound game. Let's hope he practices in full and doesn't have a setback all week. But I think he's as healthiest since he has been in week one, and that's great news there for Gabe Davis and getting him going this week. Chris Godwin, the Falcons are okay on the outside with A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward in the slot. Terrible. This should be a breakout game for Chris Godwin at home against that Falcons secondary. The Commanders duo of Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, very good matchup against the Titans secondary. There's also no Jahan Dotson with a hamstring injury, so that's going to open up targets for both of these guys. Again, Titans are pretty good against a tight end, so that could curb some of the value of Logan Thomas this week. So McLaurin and Samuel, really good positions here to produce well with decent volume. And again, that's our shootout of the week here between the Commanders and Titans because of how bad those pass defenses are. Al Lazard and Romeo Doubs, by the numbers, the Giants secondary has not been too bad here, but they do have some injuries there on the outside and inside this week. So really, Lazard and Doubs have really locked themselves in as Aaron Rodgers' key targets, just a little bit of Randall Cobb, a little bit of Robert Tunyon trickling down off them. But these guys are the number two. They both 1 and 2. Co-1, co-2, whatever you want to call them, but they're feeling it with Rodgers in that matchup. Pretty favorable against the Giants this week. Brandon Cooks, he got going, and the Jaguars' secondary is not the greatest. They're pretty good against the run. I think they'll rebound a little bit against Damian Pierce. Brandon Cooks looks like he's viable again here. Devontae Smith also should eat against that Cardinals secondary. You got Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson. Yeah, that's going to be good for Brown and Smith, and no rainstorm this week. Jerry Judy. Kenny Moore hasn't been all that great in the slot for the Colts, so you might see a little bit of KJ Hamler work outside or Judy being a little bit interchangeable with Hamler in that situation. But Judy's hot. He's playing well with Russell Wilson like him this week. Tyler Boyd, also a very good blitz beater, and he can help produce. So I think all three receivers for the Bengals are going to be successful this week in a pass-happy game plan with Joe Burrow. So like Boyd against the Ravens this week in that strong secondary. Adam Thielen, he's looking good again, and really he's the clear number two there. We're trying to work on KJ Osborne and looking at what Irv Smith Jr. could do. Jalen Naylor was a bit of a sleeper there, but now it's all about Adam Thielen being really the number 2 target as Justin Jefferson dominates attention from coverages. So another player I like in a deeper spot is Robert Woods this week. No Traylon Burke, got turf toe. Woods and Ryan Tannehill showed a good connection there, so they might have to put it up in the air a little bit more. I don't think the Commanders have anyone who can cover inside or outside. So I really like Robert Woods this week. A good sneaky play in DFS as well. George Pickens should be busy against the Bills. They're still hurting there. Dane Jackson is healthy now, but you have no Davis White. There are some liabilities there. Diontae Johnson should get the coverage attention there for the Steelers. So George Pickens, the rookie, feeling it with the Kenny Pickett quarterback change. I think he's going to be evolving into their wide receiver 1 on their team, and that puts us in a good position for him to produce as a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football. So there you have it. There's the wide receivers that I've ranked pretty high and ones that I want to play with them this week in their matchups. So those are the ones I feel the best about if they're in your lineups. Now, you may not have the to make those tough calls and sit some players, but we'll give you the receivers you want to think about sitting there in our next segment. Before we do that, do you ever wish that before every NFL game you could get up-to-date and accurate information before placing bets or locking in your fantasy football lineup? Well, now you can with the Elias Game Plan app, the ultimate sports betting and fantasy companion for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Whether you're part of a fantasy tournament, placing bets, or just a huge sports fan and stats nerd, the Elias Game Plan has everything you need. Elias Game Plan is pretty sweet here. It helps me with stats, and I like to look at stats and different data points to figure out who I want to play in fantasy football, what teams I like when I'm picking against the spread. You can see and hear their trusted facts all the time from ESPN, your local radio broadcasts, and television broadcasts. But now you can have all the stats, facts, and team and player updates in the palm of your own hands, all backed by the renowned research team at Elias. I really like it. I love their league-validated team player news and stats because it's good to have the official numbers there. I never thought I'd talk to the renowned researchers at Elias until I got this app. It's pretty cool that you can connect with them and know exactly how the process works to come up with their numbers. So excellent there. And they have a lot of things that you can do. With their new chat function, you can talk to them directly and receive the information you need to back your big decisions on betting or fantasy leagues. Plus, their newly added weekly survivor pool analysis keeps you in the game. Take this NFL season to the next level and download the Elias Game Plan app today. Choose from 3 game plans when you subscribe weekly, monthly, or annual. But I can get you 25% off your first month when you choose the monthly subscription. Just use the promo code for Locked On Fantasy Football. That's Locked On NFL 25. That's Locked On NFL lowercase numbers 25. Locked On NFL 25. Find Elias Game Plan sports betting in the App Store or Play Store today, and use the promo code Locked On NFL 25 to get that discount there off your first month when you choose the monthly subscription. Only at Elias there. All right, we will continue the show in the moment to continue to break down our wide receiver and tight end ranking starts and sits. We'll focus on the wide receivers you may want to avoid this week and then look at the tight ends there that we want to play. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL predictions every Friday. That's tomorrow on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local expert giving the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, Bet Online. Follow NFL key predictions every Friday on the Locked On NFL show, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like you can find Locked On Fantasy Football. All right, it is time to continue the show with wide receivers I don't like as much this week. We're going to start with Diontae Johnson of the Steelers. That looked good with Mitchell Trubisky. Didn't really improve that much with Kenny Pickett. And George Pickens is going to be a big part of what they do, but I don't think passing can support a couple players this week. So Johnson is going to be a bit underwhelmed. I think they'll get Pickens going. I think you'll see some checkdowns as well, even though it's a tough matchup for Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris. You'll see some of that here this week, and maybe a little bit more Chase Claypool down the field, Pickens taking the shots in garbage time. So Diontae Johnson, I do not love this week, but he might be stuck playing him as a wide receiver too, and maybe he eats up a little bit with Kenny Pickett. Drake London is in a tough spot, I think, against the Buccaneers secondary. There's some size matchup that he's got to worry about with Carlton Davis this week, and Marcus Mariota not playing. I can't trust him on the road. So Drake London, we're going to not play this week. Amari Cooper, I do not like this matchup. I re-examined it here. Did not look that great for him last week against A.J. Terrell. Could see either J.C. Jackson or Bryce Callahan or Asante Samuel Jr. I don't like any of these matchups for Amari Cooper wherever he lines up this week. So it doesn't really matter there. So Amari Cooper, keep him parked. I think he'll disappoint and underwhelm as the Chargers probably win that game against the Browns on the road. Tyler Lockett, I mentioned DK Metcalf is going to be okay, but Lockett does line up on the outside quite a bit because they're using a lot of 12 personnel, so only 2 wide receivers, so no real slot receiver in a lot of their sets for the Seahawks. So it's going to put Tyler Lockett in some compromising positions there against one Marshawn Lattimore a little bit more. The size of, again, Metcalf can fight through that a little bit more and get into the end zone, but Lockett's got some trouble getting going downfield. DJ Moore, you can't play him at all. He's been awful. Baker Mayfield's been terrible. He's not getting him the ball. This 49ers secondary, those guys are playing really well. Emmanuel Mosley has been very impressive. That guy's to clean up downfield. So I don't like DJ Moore at all. Surprise, surprise. DJ Moore is not on your lineup this week again. Rashad Bateman, I'm putting on here as a sit, but you might be forced to sit him because he's got a mid-foot sprain. I don't think he's going to play this week against the Bengals. I didn't feel that John Harbaugh was very keen on him playing, so I wouldn't pivot to Devin Duvernay because Duvernay plays a little bit different position. He's a speed-based guy here, but Bateman could be a big loss for the Ravens overall there in reality, and I do like the Bengals to win that game, and not having Bateman I think is big because Bateman did have some good success against the Bengals secondary last year when Marquise Brown couldn't play, so it's tough there for Bateman to have that injury. I think he could miss more than one game, unfortunately. Brian Ayuk, we love the player in reality, but just not getting the volume there, playing off Deebo Samuel. Even George Kittle's not really getting any volume here. And I think the 49ers' positive game script, they're going to do a lot of running against the Panthers this week. So not Brian Ayuk. Darnell Mooney, it was very encouraging that he got off the mat last week, and partly Justin Fields got him a ball downfield, and they threw enough times. So Darnell Mooney proved he's still very talented. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Mooney produces. If you've got 3 better options that you feel comfortable with, go there. I mean, I might be stuck starting Mooney in a deeper league there as my wide receiver 3 or flex, so something to watch out there. But it is pretty tight overall with that spot. At wide receiver 3 or 4, there's depth there. So if you need Mooney, you can play him, but I'm going to avoid him if I can, and I have better options this week. Michael Gallup is a guy that came back into the core of the Cowboys last week, but only a couple targets. Did score a touchdown to save his value there. It's a first game back from the knee injury, but Rams secondary, I think you could see him struggling a little bit. I know they're a little bit weak. Noah Brown a little banged up, but this is a CeeDee Lamb game. I think Gallup is going to be limited here with Cooper Rush and at quarterback. You look at the Jets. This is getting tricky here. Zach Wilson has thrown a bit of a cloud over pecking orders. Corey Davis all of a sudden became the number 1. Garrett Wilson had been rolling with Joe Flacco. Elijah Moore could be the guy. Dolphins secondary, I do see that Xavier Howard is pretty banged up with an injury here as well. Their depth is a little bit questionable. So there's that, but I'm just not sure. It's kind of a roulette wheel or slot machine, any kind of gambling device with the Jets receivers right now until we get a little bit better flow and understanding of where Zach Wilson wants to put the ball. I think this team is going to also tilt to being more run heavy here with Brees Hall going forward. The Chiefs, this is another slot machine, roulette wheel. What else is there? Dice roll and craps, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you're going to get. Judy Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Miko Hardman. I don't know. Just avoid the Chiefs here until we have a little bit more clarity there. But it could be frustrating all season long as Patrick Mahomes spreads it around. It's kind of like what they had after Tyreek Hill, except they don't have Hill. They just have a bunch of different guys kind of in the Sammy Watkins mold that you don't know who's going to produce in any given week for the Chiefs, and it's probably piecemeal and spread around here this week. All right, that's a good transition to our tight end starts of the week because, look, we know the Chiefs' main guy is Travis Kelsey. He's a stud, absolute guy. He's kind of like the Cooper Kupp there of the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes is going to feed him the ball as much as possible. Everyone else is down there, except the difference is Mahomes is actually playing well, and the Chiefs are producing. Well, Matthew Stafford's not getting anyone going other than his boy Cooper Kupp. So Travis Kelsey against the Raiders, he's clearly the number 1 at home this week. Mark Andrews has had a good success against the Bengals there, so I think he delivers here this week. There, Cincinnati's had a little bit of trouble with the tight end in coverage, so Kelsey Andrews do it again. Darren Waller, I think, rebounds. Let's hope Hunter Renfrow can return. That's a pretty key thing to happen, but the Chiefs do struggle a bit against the tight end. Cameron Braid had some end zone targets before he got out of the game last week. TJ Hawkinson is on a bender here with his last 2 weeks. He's got a hip injury, but he'll play through it. The Patriots, let's hope they don't scheme to take him out of the game. But Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips a little bit banged up at safety. That does help the tight ends produce against the Patriots there. And the touchdown came from Tunyon against that team, however, last week. So Hawkinson is in a good spot to produce here this week. You look at Dallas Goedert, a great matchup. The Cardinals are allowing the most fantasy points to tight ends, so he's in your lineup every week. He's one of the more underrated, consistent producers at the position, mainly because A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, this Eagles pass with Jalen Hurts has looked outstanding. George Kittle, we're going to give it one more go. He almost came down with the touchdown there. I thought he was in to get his fantasy football value, but this could be a game where he gets going. No Jeremy Chin. That's a big loss in the safety coverage. I also see that Frankie Louvu and Shaq Thompson are a little bit banged up at outside linebacker for the Panthers. So that's going to help Kittle. This Panthers team has been pretty good against tight end and wide receivers, but this could be the opportunity for Kittle to have a nice game and find the end zone, and maybe at the expense of one Brandon Ayuk playing off Deebo Samuel in this particular week. So that's that. Let's look at the other tight ends I like this week. Kyle Pitts, yeah, look, it's been rough for Kyle Pitts. He's had one really good game. That's pretty much it in that matchup against the Seahawks. But that's about it. We want him to get in the end zone. We know he only scored one touchdown, but he started slowly last year. They're going to get him more involved. I think Arthur Smith knows it. Mariota knows it. The Buccaneers have been a little bit giving to tight ends this year, but my Pitts did miss Wednesday's practice with a hamstring. So be prepared. Again, you probably are, because Pitts has struggled here for multiple weeks to have a good backup plan and play him instead if Pitts doesn't go. So we'll watch that hamstring in the next 2 days and give you that update there tomorrow to see if we think he's going to be playing here and if you should put him in your lineup there against the Buccaneers. Tyler Higby keeps bringing it. He's the second guy behind Cooper Kupp, and the Cowboys can give up some numbers there. And again, Higby's just getting so many targets there that you cannot sit him at this point. Another Tyler I like is Conklin. We had Hayden Hurst score. He's a former and current Bengal that replaced Tyler Conklin. So you look at Conklin related to that. So I think there's a good chance Conklin finds the end zone here for Zach Wilson, further complicating how we look at the wide receivers there. Dawson Knox is battling through different injuries again this week. Didn't practice earlier in the week, but if he's out there, it's a good spot against the Steelers, who've been giving numbers there. I referred to him as a former Bengal. He's a current Bengal. Conklin is the former Bengal. Anyway, they have similar roles in relation to each other. Hayden Hurst could definitely find the end zone. The Ravens have given up some numbers to the tight ends this year for sure. Hunter Henry is a sneaky play this week. Here's why. It could be Bailey Zappi, a quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks tend to target tight ends a little bit more, and there's no Jonah Smith. He's got an ankle injury, so maybe a little bit of breakup with his committee. Maybe Hunter Henry will get some more involvement here this week. So a little bit of a dark throw with Hunter Henry, but the Lions have been so awful against everything. And we saw Will Dissly score a touchdown against them last week. So Hunter Henry is not bad. I told you the Commanders are in a tough matchup for the tight end for Logan Thomas, but someone's going to have to pick up those targets that Jahan Dotson left, or we see that Carson Wentz likes to throw to tight end. So Logan Thomas could be a little bit more involved with a chance for a touchdown this week. And keep in mind, the Titans did give up multiple touchdowns there last week to Mo Alley Cox. That could definitely happen. So maybe that is being unlocked a little bit against that defense and Kevin Byard and those guys on the back end. Taysom Hill, this is another dark throw. So if you're struggling at tight end, most of you are. Hunter Henry, again, is a sneaky play against the Lions without Jonu. Taysom Hill is a sneaky play against the Seahawks, and here's why. They got rid of Latavius Murray, so now he's Broncos. So they feel a little bit better about Alvin Kamara's role, but Hill is the guy that makes a lot of sense to use and give a few more touches this week against the Seahawks, either as a tight end or as a running back with the Michael Thomas injury. Alvin Kamara with the pain tolerance with the ribs. You also have other issues. Jarvis Landry a little bit banged up. So this could be an opportunity to roll with Taysom Hill a little bit there, especially if Andy Dalton's a quarterback. We did Hill score a touchdown, getting some usage there. Again, touchdown dependent is tight end, and Taysom Hill's very sneaky this week here along with Henry. So those are the deep plays at tight end if you're struggling to go in this week. And we'll get into the weaker starts, as I didn't mention and don't like as much this week. In our final segment, we'll also look at defenses, their recommended for starts and ones that I would avoid for sits here in week number 5. We'll do all that in our final segment. We do have another sponsor that we have to tell you about here, and we talked about them yesterday as well. And this is important for you to have a winning team at your workplace. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. Really, NFL teams are like individual small businesses. They need to have the right teams in place to win on the field. You want to have that same winning feeling with your company. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's really good. I work in a small company. It's important to find the right close-knit team to make it work for you. It's pretty easy to get in and get a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. All you do is add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL, all caps there, LockedOnNFL, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, we will now close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We've gone in depth here with our wide receiver start sits. We gave you our tight end rankings and recommendations there for starters at that position. Now we're going to go to the tight end downside. Pat Freiermuth, I didn't see the chemistry there between him and Kenny Pickett early, and it would make sense that a rookie would lean on the tight end, but I think Mitchell Trubisky is more like a rookie. That I think Kenny Pickett's got some moxie. He's going to push the ball downfield. He's aggressive. He's going to throw it downfield a little bit more. That's why I kind of like the George Pickens and Chase Claypool pivot a little bit away from Johnson and Freiermuth this week. So, again, this matchup is pretty bad here. Matt Milano really erases tight ends on the second level. I know they're down like a Hyde, but Jordan Poyer should be in the game here to contain Freiermuth. So keep that in mind. I think it's more a wide receiver garbage game here for Kenny Pickett on the back end than going with the principals in the passing game. Gerald Everett, he's a guy week to week. I just don't trust him too much. There's a chance that you have also Keenan Allen returning this week. I know Joshua Palmer's a little bit banged up, but I don't think it's a week for Gerald Everett. I think you can go after the corners there of the Browns, and that can help there with this production. David Njoku, not going to play him on the other side. They've actually been good against tight ends. The Chargers used to struggle, but they at least have Derwin James out there, still have their linebackers out there. They've had a lot of injuries, but Njoku you can't trust. He also lost a fumble last week. Robert Tonyan, he's touchdown dependent. We know that. The Giants have been pretty good against the tight end. They've got good linebackers and safeties there, so I don't want to go with Tonyan this week. Irv Smith Jr., you can't go there with the other guys being involved. And again, I told you Adam Thielen is reestablishing himself as the clear number 2 option there to Justin Jefferson in the Vikings offense. Dalton Schultz, we can't trust him. Got a 0 last week. Cooper Rush doesn't seem to trust Schultz all that much here, or doesn't have a real connection with him where Dak Prescott does. So wait for Prescott to return next week against the Eagles to make it happen. Probably there with Schultz, but you can park him. The Rams have been good in coverage with Ernest Jones and other guys there in coverage. Evan Ingram, it's not going to go there. I mean, I think he's a guy that has got a name because he was a first-round pick with the Giants, but he's just not being used enough in this Jaguars offense with Christian Kirk and possibly returning Zay Jones to go there this week in fantasy. All right, that takes care of our tight end sits there to go along with our starts and rankings at that position. Now let's go through our defensive starts and sits here for the week. Number 1 defense, I like the Bills. I think they'll force some covers there against Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett will put up some numbers, I think, but the Bills will still dominate that matchup at home against the Steelers. 49ers against Baker Mayfield. I don't care. It's on the road. It's a good spot. The Packers in London against the Giants, maybe seeing Jake Fromm at quarterback. Yeah, you're going to smash that. They just saw Bailey Zappi at quarterback put up some decent numbers. They didn't play as well as defense as I saw that they could last week, but Jair Alexander being out was part of it. So I think he could return here. The Giants Passing game is very depleted here. If they can contain Saquon Barkley, they'll make some plays against whoever's starting quarterback for the Giants. The Cowboys, they're going to get some sacks here. The Rams offensive line in the interior really beat up here. David Edwards has a concussion. We know Brian Allen's been out. Their right guard, Coleman Shelton, has been hurt as well. They don't have a good left tackle play with Joe Noteboom, so that's going to be good for Micah Parsons and the defense. And we know that Matthew Stafford is turning over the ball at a high rate as well as getting sacked. The Buccaneers against Marcus Mariota, I think the wheels are coming off there with Mariota as bridge quarterback, so they'll be angry. They'll make some plays. They really did not look good against the Chiefs last week. Jaguars, Davis Mills on the road is money in the bank for your defense, so Jaguars is good there. Vikings against Justin Fields at home. Rams facing Cooper Rush. I think they'll rebound a little bit after that 49 matchup. And tonight, the Broncos for sure. It's the tonight home game night emotional bump here for the Broncos there this week. So I do like them against the Colts without Jonathan Taylor to wreak havoc on the Broncos run defense, gashed by Josh Jacobs last week. All right, let's turn to the other defenses I like. I like the Saints this week at home against the Seahawks, actually in their real home in the Superdome, not in London this week. So they'll force some action from Geno Smith. Geno can still turn over the ball, and the Saints can do that and be active with Dennis Allen. And I think you'll see a few sacks from Cameron Jordan against those rookie tackles who played pretty well, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, but some sacks in the offing here for the Saints this week. Dolphins, you got to say Zach Wilson still making mistakes here. They're going to blitz him and get some turnovers there, so good stuff there. I do like the Patriots quite a bit this week. They really prove themselves against Aaron Rodgers on the road. They get the Lions at home this week. They actually have a very good schedule coming up here where they can cause some problems, including the Browns and former Patriot Jacoby Brissett. So interesting they're coming up for them. So I think Matt Patricia, he's going to give them some tips here to beat the Lions badly. And again, Matt Patricia didn't work out well, and it partly was his fault in Detroit, but a little revenge game there for the Patriots defense, and they're starting to play really well against Bill Belichick. Surprise, surprise, he found new guys to deliver in his system there. Chiefs, again, emotional primetime bump on Monday night. They did come through, remember, on Thursday night against the Chargers for some plays there. So maybe Derek Carr mistake there in the lights with the high volume sacks and takeaways in the offing there. Look at the Titans. We know Carson Wentz can create some mistakes there. They did play really well. The Titans did, even without Harold Landry. And they're depleted there without Amani Hooker last week against the Colts. So I do like the Titans making some plays against the Commanders this week. So those are good plays there for you on the defensive side there. So 9 really good plays and then several other streaming options for you to handle it this week. Some streaming options I would avoid. The Eagles, I know the Eagles have played really well. The Cardinals offense hasn't looked all that great, but Cardinals are better there at home, scoring points. They did look a little bit better against the Panthers. Tough defense last week. The Eagles not as good on the road away from the weather. So the Eagles can't play the Ravens against the Bengals. The sacks are really coming down. 2 points dependent there for Baltimore to play versus Cincinnati. Chargers, not great. I think they can get gashed a little bit against the run. That's not going to help their defensive upside for plays against the Browns. I don't like the Browns in that same matchup against Justin Herbert. You look at Panthers, yeah, they've been valuable late in recent weeks, making some big plays there, but not happening against the 49ers, who tend to protect the ball pretty well. Seahawks, they not a play that you're going to against that, even though the numbers say the Saints have given up quite a few points there without Jameis Winston playing. It's less turnover-centric there for the Seahawks offense. And the Lions, some people might be trying to get cute and play them against Bailey Zappi, potentially on the road. Not going to do it. The Lions' defense is terrible. They're the worst in the league. Don't get cute trying to be smart here. I think if you're going to get that way, think about the Patriots at home against the Lions and the Chiefs at home against the Raiders this week. Those are teams that should be readily available for you to plug and play for some good value here in this week of games. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of your wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses for week number 5 in fantasy football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Don't forget, we will close the week tomorrow with our DFS and injury update report there for you. So we'll look at the injury update, things you need to know, what the players' statuses are looking like for the Sunday and Monday games. We'll have a brief breakdown as well of Thursday night football between the Colts and Broncos. Good luck if you need something to start your week off right. You can check out my mini decider there, start to sit for Thursday Night Football on sportingnews.com. Now and again, we will also look at our picks there for FanDuel, DraftKings, and Prize Picks, our title sponsor there to help you play those games this week. So action-packed Friday there to help close the week here. So if you missed the quarterback and running back rankings, those are just talk about wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses. Now make the second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis you need in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available just like this show wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck with all your Colts and Broncos, and we'll check you out tomorrow to close the week here on Locked On Fantasy Football.